Welcome to the deep dive. So you're here because, well, you're past the beginner stuff, right? You've actually worked with control systems, got your hands dirty with data communication.
Right, you've got that practical experience.
Exactly. And now you're thinking, okay, how do I level up? How do I make this experience count, officially?
That's the perfect point to be at. You're starting to see the bigger picture beyond just plugging things in.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, the DCDC certification, but specifically for you folks in that intermediate zone.
Yeah, this isn't really for the absolute beginners, and maybe not breaking news for the seasoned experts either.
Now we're talking to you, the ones who've been out there, seen systems run, maybe fixed a few things, and now you're aiming for that formal stamp of approval.
So our goal today really is twofold. First, understand why this DC-DC thing matters for you right now. And second, figure out how you, with your current experience, can actually tackle the exam successfully.
Turning that hands-on time into a recognized credential. Okay, so let's start right there. What exactly is this DCDC certification? Lay it out for us.
Okay, so DC-DC, it stands for Data Communication and Distribution Control. Think of it as a recognized validation. It tells people you know how to design, manage, and critically troubleshoot datacom systems.
And these are the systems in places like manufacturing floors, automation setups.
Exactly. Manufacturing, automation, electrical networks, all those critical areas.
So it's not just book smarts, not just memorizing terms.
Oh, definitely not. It's much more practical. It proves you understand how the actual hardware connects, how the different communication protocols work, the language they speak, and maybe most important for someone at your stage,
The troubleshooting part.
the troubleshooting, yeah. How to systematically figure out what's wrong when things inevitably go sideways. It shows you can apply what you know.
Right. So for our listeners, the intermediate folks, they understand devices, maybe they've done some basic setups. What's the real kicker? Why pursue this certification?
Well, it's about making a leap, really. It pushes you past just understanding, say, one sensor or one controller.
Okay.
It forces you to think about the whole system logic. How do all these pieces talk to each other reliably? Where might things break down? It sharpens those problem-solving skills you've probably started developing.
In those high-pressure moments, yeah.
Exactly. It's about proving you can handle the complexity, manage the network, not just install a component. It solidifies that growing expertise. It's the logical next step,
That makes a lot of sense. It's about demonstrating that system-level thinking. Okay, so let's dig into that. What separates this intermediate level from a beginner when it comes to this certification?
Yeah.
What are the expectations?
Yeah, that's key. The expectations definitely jump up. You're moving away from just memorizing definitions.
Right. No more flashcards necessarily.
Maybe fewer flashcards.
Yeah.
It's all about applying principles, taking what you know theoretically and using it in real situations, the kind you probably face day to day.
Like what specifically? What kind of knowledge application are we talking about?
Well, for one, understanding common protocols is huge. You probably bumped into Modbus.
Right, sure. Connecting sensors or drives.
Right. But now it's about understanding why Modbus is used here, maybe not there. What are its limits compared to, say, Ethernet IP? And crucially, how do you diagnose a common Modbus issue, like getting the addressing wrong?
Okay, deeper than just knowing the name.
Much deeper. Same goes for things like BeatNet in building automation or Profinet, depending on your industry. You need a working knowledge.
And it's not just knowing about them, but how they actually function, the nitty-gritty.
Absolutely. And that leads into troubleshooting. You're expected to know how to diagnose common communication headaches, things like packet loss, interrupting data flow.
Always frustrating.
Tell me about it. Or incorrect addressing, stopping devices from talking. Or that classic one, tracking down electromagnetic interference, EMI in a noisy factory.
Ugh, yeah. Been there. Chasing ghosts sometimes.
Exactly. And at this intermediate level, you also need the ability to sort of visualize the whole workflow, like mentally trace data from a sensor picking up a reading to the controller processing it, then out to the HMI screen the operator sees. You need to see the whole chain.
Understand the connections, how one part affects another.
Precisely. It's a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
You move from just fixing one broken piece
To thinking about the whole system's design, its health.
That's it exactly. Thinking about reliability, potential failure points, being proactive, not just reactive.
Okay, that paints a really clear picture of the intermediate challenge. So let's say our listeners are nodding along thinking, yep, that's me, I'm ready. What's a practical study roadmap look like for them? How should they structure their prep?
Right. Structure is key. You can't just randomly read stuff. I'd break it down into maybe 4 main areas.
Okay, first up.
First, a really solid system architecture review. Go beyond basic diagrams.
Mm.
Focus on the differences, the practical differences between, say, a DCS, a standard PLC setup, and maybe a big SCADA system.
And how they network together.
Yes, definitely focus on the networking layers. How do they communicate? How
Mhm.
does data actually flow within each type of system? Understand the blueprints.
Got it. Architecture first. What's number 2?
Second, protocol mastery. We touched on this, but it's crucial. Don't just recognize names like Modbus or Ethernet IP. Dive deep.
Into the weeds.
Absolutely. Understand packet structures, what's in that data message. Know the handshaking process, how devices
Mhm.
confirm they're talking correctly, error detection methods, baud rates,
Right.
address schemes, the real mechanics of the conversation.
Like learning the grammar of the device language.
That's a great way to put it. Third, and this is super practical for the exam and the job, hone your fault-finding skills.
The troubleshooting again.
Yes. Study the common failures.
Hmm.
Things like grounding loops causing noise,
Oh, yeah. The worst.
timing mismatches, messing up data exchange, bad cable terminations, screwing up signals. The exam loves real-world troubleshooting scenarios, so knowing these common culprits is vital.
So practical problems, not just theory.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Which brings me to the fourth point, case study practice. This is incredibly valuable.
How does that work?
Find real-world failure examples. Look in industry white papers, tech journals, even online forums where engineers share war stories. Break down each case. What was the problem? What were the symptoms? How did they diagnose it step by step? What was the fix?
So you're learning from others' experiences.
Precisely. The exam often uses scenario questions that are basically these kinds of real-world engineering puzzles. Practicing with case studies builds that problem-solving muscle.
That sounds really effective, almost like practicing without the pressure of a real system being down.
Exactly. You get the mental workout.
Okay, that's a solid roadmap. Architecture, protocols, fault finding, case studies. Now, what about specific resources? Where should intermediate learners focus their energy?
Good question. At this stage, you need to target your resources. Your main guide should probably be the official DCDC study guide. But don't just read it cover to cover.
Focus on specific parts.
Yeah, focus on the more advanced chapters, the ones that really get into system design details, advanced protocol features, complex troubleshooting, the stuff we've been talking about. You likely know the basics already.
Makes sense. Target the intermediate level content. What else?
Don't ignore vendor manuals.
Yeah.
You know, from Siemens, Allen Bradley, Schneider, whoever is relevant to your work. They can seem dense.
Understatement sometimes.
True. But they are packed with gold. Details about specific devices, how their protocols work exactly, network setup guides, diagnostic tips. Zero in on the sections about networking and troubleshooting.
So, worth battling through the density for those real-world specific?
Absolutely. Also, I'd strongly recommend getting familiar with network monitoring tools. Wireshark is the classic example.
Actually looking at the network traffic.
Yes. Capturing and analyzing the actual packets flying back and forth, seeing the raw data, the structure. It gives you incredible insight into how protocols really work and what errors look like at the lowest level. It's like looking under the hood.
See the conversation happening live. Cool.
Very cool and very useful. And finally, don't underestimate online communities. Places like control.com, plctalk.net.
Forums and discussion boards.
Yeah. They're full of experienced engineers talking about real problems they've solved, weird issues they've seen. Reading those discussions, maybe even asking questions, exposes you to tons of practical knowledge you just won't find in a textbook.
It's like tapping into a collective brain trust.
Pretty much. You see how theory gets applied, often in messy, real-world ways. It's fantastic preparation.
Okay, great resources there. So fast forward, you've done the studying, use the resources, the roadmap is complete, exam day looms. What's the mindset? How should you approach the actual test?
Right, the big day. Couple of key things to keep front of mind. First, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Speed and accuracy.
Tricky balance.
It is. You'll likely have multiple choice questions needing quick recall, but also those scenario questions demanding more thought. You need to pace yourself, don't get bogged down, but also don't rush and make silly mistakes. Avoid overthinking the straightforward stuff.
Find that rhythm. Got it. What else?
Second, and this plays right into your hands if you have that intermediate experience, focus on applying concepts, not just spitting back facts.
Like we discussed, practical application.
Exactly. If you've practiced with those case studies and thought about real-world problems, you'll be much better prepared for the scenario questions. The examiners want to see your logical thinking, your problem-solving process, not just rote memorization.
Your experience actually becomes an asset in the exam room.
It really should be. And finally, remember that confidence comes from practice. If you've put in the work, followed a plan, really wrestled with the material, trust that preparation. Trust your experience.
That self-assurance can make a real difference under pressure.
It absolutely can. Don't underestimate it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground: the why, the what, the how to prepare, the resources, the mindset. As we wrap up this deep dive on the DCDC for intermediates, what's the main takeaway?
Well, first off, if you're at this intermediate point, give yourself some credit. You've already put in serious work to get past the basics of controls and data comms. That foundational stuff is tough, and you're through it.
Yeah, acknowledge that progress. You're not starting from scratch.
Definitely not. So now the focus really shifts. It's about sharpening that thinking, really honing the problem-solving skills, and showing the world and employers that you're not just qualified on paper, but you're truly capable of handling complex, real systems.
And the DCDC certification is that proof, that validation.
That's exactly what it is. It's more than just a line on a CV. It's tangible evidence of your capabilities, your commitment to doing this work professionally and competently.
So the advice is stay consistent, stick to the plan you build based on what we discussed.
Precisely. Keep at it, leverage the experience you already have, and honestly, that DCDC certification is very achievable.
All right, and maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over. Really think about this. How will getting this formal DCDC certification specifically change your day-to-day work? What kind of projects might open up? What responsibilities might you gain? And thinking bigger picture, how does it fuel your long-term career goals? Consider the concrete impact this could have.
That's a great question to reflect on.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.